Hello and welcome back to the Planning Pulse podcast. With you as always, Matt Harvison, the Principal Practice Lead for Workday Adaptive Planning at Ikorio. With me on our third episode of our ML Forecast mini-series, our Senior Solutions Strategist, Tom Trammell. Tom, how are we doing today?
Doing great. Happy to be back.
Pretty good, pretty good. I'm excited that we continue on our ML Forecast mini-series. We've, sort of a recap for everyone where we've been. We started out week one looking at operating expenses. That's non-labor related operating expenses. Episode 2, we got into attrition forecasting utilizing actuals from our HRIS or HCM source system. And today we're going to be talking a little bit more in depth about demand-based forecasting of personnel and personnel needs as we're going through the workforce planning process. So super excited about our episode for today. I know, Tom, you're going to be leading the demonstration. It's going to give you a little bit of a break. It's going to give everybody an opportunity to see Tom's demo skills. I think once they get a taste for what you can do, they'll sort of ask me to stop doing demos. So without further ado, Tom, just really excited to see what you've got for us today.
Yeah, no, I think it's going to be good. So just bring it up. Just let me know if you can't see my screen. So coming in here to Workday Adaptive Planning, again, talking about the machine learning forecaster, it's a functionality that is should be accessible to everyone. If you don't see it, make sure you check in your administration under the permissions and set up to make sure it is provisioned. If not, reach out to a member of the Ikorio team. We can definitely hop on a call, get you going, get it set up for you. To access it, we'll go into navigation, into modeling, come in here to model management, and we're going to come back in. It's going to be in this intelligent planning area in the model management. So the focus today being on staffing and staffing ladders and also, demand generation. Our main driver of that we're going to use in this model is foot traffic. So we're going to have an event venue and there's going to be foot traffic that we want to forecast, and that's going to then translate into the demand that we're going to need for on our staffing side to plan for the various different positions that support catering to our patrons that are going to be there. So if you joined us before, you'll know coming back into the predictive forecaster, you're not having to deal with the algorithms. You're not having to deal with understanding the nuances at that level of coding. Really what we're doing is we're selecting what data do we want to have be a part of this particular machine learning forecast. And so you can see here, I put in foot traffic. That's our main priority for today. And then going down to the specific model we're working in, the specific version we're working in, and then the time period that we have that we plan to forecast for. So that's going to be a few of the general settings, and then we get down to more specific. Which account are we doing? Which account is going to have those historical actuals in it that we can use to then trend forward? And at what level? So what level in the hierarchy is this going to live at? And so the last one we talked about before, the historical actuals. What periods are we going to use? Very, very important to have that data there so that the algorithms and the machine learning forecast can have something to reference. Today, we're going to go a little further into this section down here for advanced settings. Now, we touched on this a few weeks ago, talking about the individual algorithms and the variety that we can have here, as well as the auto fit, which is a real nice for people like me who don't try to claim to understand algorithms. So it gives us a way that it'll look at the data and pick what it feels is the best one for us. But in particular, coming down into this section here, we see this section here for lever sheets. Now, what are lever sheets? Matt, have you ever explained this to somebody, talked to somebody about lever sheets and what they can be used for?
Yeah, absolutely. When I think of lever sheets, I'm thinking about external factors that are going to make an impact on our forecasted data. I know you're going to go into the details for this retail example. I think levers are a really an interesting concept for anybody who does any type of variable staffing. You think of something like higher education, right? If we're going to look at staffing our workforce, our educators, what do we need to understand from an outside perspective? We're not just pushing forward the number of teachers that we need based off of teachers that we had, but maybe student enrollment.
Yep.
If we're looking at something like healthcare, right, we're looking at how many nurses, how many doctors, how many support staff do we need to bring in? What are we looking at? We're not just looking at what we
Yeah.
did in the past, but it's a combination with what our census looks like as well.
Mhm.
So the levers allow us to have something like census or something like student enrollment or something like federal interest rates for our financial services customers. Lever allows us for a more intelligent forecast.
Right. No, that was perfect. Perfect. It's what is that extra bit of data that is going to influence our forecast? It's going to influence the outcome of our ML forecaster. So, selecting here, you can select specific sheets, right? This one I've got the events and weather. So we'll look at that in a little bit more here in a second. Coming down here also, along with the lever sheets, we have a little bit of, additional functionality in gaining those confidence metrics. So what this is going to do is allow Adaptive to give you a high and a low. So this could be a best case, worst case version of this forecast. And what that'll do is it'll put each one of those in a separate version. And that allows you to run your reports, do some variance analysis against your best case, your worst case, and then the standard, forecaster that Adaptive's given you. So you can see, where are we falling? And maybe you can make a choice between what you think is more realistic for you and your team and what your outlook is. So a little more detail in this section. Definitely encourage you to read the product documentation going into that, or reach out to your Choreo team and we can help walk you through it, give you a full demonstration and get you more confident in using the tool. So, okay, I'm going to go ahead and run this real quick. Oop.
Yeah, and as you're running it, that's perfect timing. So I'm glad you clicked run, but I'm also glad that you dove into the confidence metrics a little bit too, because I know Tom, in our first episode in the ML forecast mini series, we talked about how do we get confidence? How do we gain confidence in what we're actually looking at? Historically, we always said, okay, well, you can do back testing. You can run it for a former actuals period, see where it would have stacked up. Back testing is not a bad way to do it, but Workday Adaptive Planning has continued to put investment back into this tool to allow you to be able to not only run the forecast, but to actually get the confidence or probability metrics from that output as well. Backtesting will always be available should you want to go in and do that. But I'm just glad that you hit on that because I know it's something we talked about previously.
Yeah, it's again, like I've said the last couple of weeks, not being afraid to go into those advanced settings and see and try what happens if I do this, what if I do that. So going down in there, no harm in looking in there, but absolutely not mandatory. Initially as you start building out your ML forecaster for your various different models that you have here. Okay, so we're going to let this run for a minute, and I'm going to switch over to our dashboards here just to kind of show what we're looking at, what are the source of that, and we're expecting it to come through. So if you've ever had a demonstration or ever worked with a Choreo before, or Adaptive in general, probably spent a little bit of time in the dashboards. And really because in Adaptive, dashboards aren't just BI presentation tools. They can be a full environment to work in, having our models in there as well as graphical information that gives us real-time feedback on how these trends are looking over the year comparing to say prior years. We have here, we can see that visually, and so when we layer 2026 onto this, we can immediately see how it relates to prior years. So coming into this model, the foot traffic is what's going to drive the demand. So how many people are going to show up to our venue in any given month on any given day in a month? And so we have our historical actuals that have been coming in from our source system. And so we want to use this to then forecast out the future so we can calculate what is that demand going to be? What's our utilization rate? And then we've got a couple lever sheets down here that we talked about because these are going to influence how many people are going to come to our venue. How many events are we going to have each month? And even the weather, I don't raining and stormy outside. I might not want to go out to the club and, go swimming or take the kids to the pool or something like that. And it's going to influence that. So we put these in here together to help influence that forecast for our ML prediction. So let's check on that real quick. Looks like, okay, so success. So if I come back over here, I'm going to refresh my sheet here, and that's going to refresh all my metrics. So, okay, looks like we've got here a really good trend based on our historicals, get a utilization rate, Great. So now we've got kind of a baseline for our demand, and now we can start looking at, okay, taking that, what is it going to take for staffing? Now, Matt, when we're looking at staffing and the demand to meet that, what are some of the most challenging things that you've heard from a client on how to determine? Because, it can be a little vague. There's no formula, there's no set rule on how many people I need to staff to meet up or to meet up with the demand for X number of people visiting.
Yeah, and I think a lot of the challenge comes along too with it's not necessarily a one for one, but there could also be
Mhm.
shift related work as well. So if you've
Right.
got a morning shift and an evening shift.
Hmm.
So a lot of times when we get into the staffing ladders, we want to take into
Hmm.
account things like shift requirements, hours per
Yep.
shift, break times per shift.
Right.
And all of those are still going to factor in with our total census or with our foot traffic. Again, by leveraging something like the ML forecast
Mhm.
that's available from Adaptive, you're able to get down into daily or weekly granularity where previously you may have only gone down to the month. So it helps you get
Yep.
more accurate, helps free up a lot of the time that you would have spent trying to, aggregate data into getting more accurate data, making decisions about, okay, if we have that foot traffic that's coming in, can we break that up by time of day so that we can look at shift
Hmm.
requirements? Can we
Yep.
break that up maybe by additional assumptions? So you think about something like hotel staffing or hotel planning. What do you think
Hmm.
of if we have 10 people staying in our rooms or we have 10 rooms booked? What are some assumptions that allow us to say, okay, because of that, what is our food and beverage requirement or our spa
Yep.
requirement? So it's simple acts through our machine learning forecast that can then help with the variable staffing across all aspects or all departments of
Mhm.
our organization.
Right. No, that was perfect. Thanks, Matt. So we follow that forecast for our foot traffic over here into our main planning model. And not going to go into huge detail, but we've set up a model that touches on a lot of those things that Matt just went through for various different staff type, servers, housekeeping, kitchen staff. We have that foot traffic as a baseline that then lines up against some of our other assumptions for tenant or patron to staff ratios per type, and then looking at what are those assumptions for minimum requirements, maybe additions that we know we'll need to have, and then ultimately spitting out what that variance is. Do we have a positive variance? Do we have enough staff to work the shifts that are required, or do we need to produce more, or we need to hire more? And so this graph up here kind of is a graphical illustration of that, of each one of our different staffing types. And as we go throughout the year, we see that, the kitchen staff drops, we have a little bit of a variance here, and so on. And so that was a really easy way to come up with a base driver for this type of analysis. What we weren't having to dig into a lot of different complex formulas and logic. We told Adaptive what the data was, what are the historicals that we wanted to base it off of, what are some other key factors that are going to drive it, and then Adaptive uses its inbuilt algorithms and inbuilt technology to give us a realistic forecast for that specific driver. So really, really nice to use and makes it a lot easier to put together these forecasts quicker and in theory higher quality. Because we're using something that's consistent, something that's proven, and that is used by more than just our internal team here. It's something that's used broadly in the marketplace. So,
Yeah, absolutely. And I
yeah.
think some of the key themes that you had there are consistency. We want to make
Mhm.
things simple. And ultimately the idea is to arrive at the baseline, right?
Right.
We want to help to establish what that baseline is. So if you're looking at
Mhm.
something like we throw these many events or we have these many marketing promotion or trade promotion events, we're
Mhm.
looking at that, but we're also combining it with weather related data as well.
Mhm.
But we're sitting here in January 2026. We just turned over the new year. We can reasonably guess what the weather's going to look like for the next 12 months, just based off of historic seasonality and seasonal
Mhm.
trends. So this is a baseline for you to be able to come in and say that, okay, based
Mhm.
on what we've seen before year over year, we know that our weather is going to look something like this. Now, as you come up and you want to start to refine and get into more of your rolling
Mhm.
forecast, then you can get more and more targeted and tactical
Mhm.
with something like a weather forecast. You could layer
Right.
in known marketing events that you've got.
Mhm.
But the idea for this ML forecast and this particular version and use case is let's get a baseline so we know based on seasonality, based on trends, what type of staffing are we going to need by position, by department throughout the
Mhm.
course of the year.
Exactly. And so, Adaptive provides all the necessary tools that we need to produce those forecasts, analyze those forecasts, refine those forecasts, and then, put them into use, producing our budgets and plans for, external and management viewers. So,
Absolutely.
yeah,
Absolutely. Well, Tom,
yeah.
appreciate you walking through the demand staffing or the variable staffing model for us today as we went through machine learning forecast technology. As we mentioned, this is our ML mini series. We're going to continue on talking about other things that are coming out from a product roadmap perspective. We're also going to talk about anomaly detection, several other ML related topics. But for today, Tom, anything that you want to leave our viewers with as it relates to variable staffing or demand-based staffing?
Just, there's not a one size fits all as far as logic and methodology. And so the ML forecaster, I think, is a great baseline and a great tool to use because it's easy. It's not something that you have to reinvent an entire structure in order to get your metrics and get your forecast line. It's an easy, quick way to get that baseline so that you can move past that into more important analysis and, creating value with our outputs to drive and inform your business leaders. So, just, keeping it simple, using the tools that are here for us, and then like we talked about at the beginning, reach out to a partner like a Choreo if you want to get more confident with it, more intimate with how everything works. We're happy to be here to help you, and look forward to it in the future.
Absolutely. Appreciate that,
Mhm.
Tom, and appreciate your demonstration for today. Like Tom
Yep.
said, if you want to learn more about ML forecast technology, please reach out to us at Acorio. We're here to help. We want to help you continue to grow, continue to adopt, and continue to remain adaptive to your organization's needs. So you're going to hear from us next week as we continue on with
Yep.
our ML forecasting mini series. You can plan on it.